Imagine a woman sitting alone in a room that has everything she ever worked for: career, relationships, achievements. The life her 20-year-old self dreamed of building is here. Every piece of it right in front of her. And yet there is a weight, a quiet, wordless heaviness she cannot explain. She calls it regret, but she is wrong about what she is regretting. Welcome to the Infinite Library. Today we step into one of the most overlooked chambers in all of human psychology. The hidden regret pattern that no one mentions. The one that grows in silence. The one that has no specific moment attached to it. The one that has been shaping your life for years without a name. Stay with me, because naming it will change everything. This idealized, heroic version of us who's a little braver, more disciplined, more accomplished. The one who has their life together. The one who wakes up early, eats healthy, speaks 3 languages, and has a fulfilling, passion-fueled career. And we keep them tucked away, safe in the future, just waiting for that perfect moment to let them out. We tell ourselves we'll get to it when the kids are older, when we have more money, when work settles down, when the timing is just right. But what if someday is a lie? What if it's the most dangerous, seductive lie we tell ourselves? This is the story of the quietest decision you make every single day, the decision to wait, and how it compounds over years into your loudest, most painful regret. This isn't a story about a dramatic mistake or a catastrophic failure. It's the story of a slow, creeping, silent grief for a life you were always just about to live. But more importantly, this is about how you can break that pattern starting today. Because the most powerful truth about regret is that it doesn't just make us human. If we listen to it, it can make us better. It clarifies, it instructs, and it can point the way to the life you were meant to live all along. Section 1, the problem, unpacking the suitcase of someday. Let's start with a story. Not my story, not yet. It's the story of a woman named Dorothy, and it gets right to the heart of this hidden regret pattern. As she got older, into her 70s, she described having this recurring dream. In it, there was a suitcase, a beautiful, vintage, leather-bound suitcase filled with unworn clothes. She could feel the weight of it in her hands. Each outfit had the tags still on, pristine and perfect, representing a version of herself she had planned to be. There was the rugged, khaki adventurer's outfit for the trip to see the pyramids in Egypt she never took. There was the elegant, silk, floor-length dress for the charity gala she was too shy to attend. There was the sharp, tailored power suit for the career pivot into law she never dared to make. There was even a simple, paint-splattered pair of overalls for the art classes she was always going to take in retirement. The suitcase was heavy, not with clothes, but with unlived identities. This dream is a perfect metaphor for what psychologists call the postponed self. These are the versions of you that you've shelved, filed away under someday, believing it was the prudent, responsible thing to do. You had duties, you had obligations, you had bills to pay. There was always a practical reason to wait. The world tells us to be sensible, to climb the ladder, to follow the expected path, so we postpone our dreams in the name of responsibility. We think we're making a temporary trade-off, a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. But time has a funny, cruel way of making temporary decisions permanent. That suitcase of unworn clothes, of postponed selves, sits in the attic of our minds, growing heavier each year. The poet Langston Hughes captured this perfectly in his poem Harlem, where he asks, "What happens to a dream deferred?" This is not just a beautiful line of poetry, it's a profound psychological observation that we must unpack. He asks, does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Think about that. The dream doesn't vanish. It's still there, but it's shrunken, wrinkled, its sweetness and juiciness baked out of it by years of neglect. That ambition to start a business becomes a quiet bitterness about your current job. That desire to travel the world shrivels into cynicism about other cultures. It's still recognizable as a dream, but it has lost its life force. Or he asks, does it fester like a sore and then run? This is even more sinister. A festering sore is infected. It poisons the surrounding tissue. This is the dream that turns into a quiet bitterness and discontent that poisons our present. It becomes a source of chronic stress and anxiety, a constant, low hum of dissatisfaction because we know deep down we are not living up to who we could be. It leaks out as irritability towards our loved ones, as jealousy towards our successful friends, as a general feeling that the world has dealt us an unfair hand. A dream deferred doesn't just vanish. It changes. It can wither from lack of attention, or it can rot from within, becoming a source of psychological pain. This is what makes this type of regret so sneaky. It's not the sharp, immediate sting of an action regret, the regret of doing something wrong. If you make a bad investment, or you say something hurtful to someone you love, the pain is hot and immediate. You know exactly what you did wrong. Those regrets, while painful, are often easier to process. We can apologize, we can learn, we can make amends. Research shows that over time, the pain of action regrets tends to fade. We rationalize them, learn from them, and fold them into our life story as hard-won lessons. But the regret of inaction, the regret of not doing something, is a different beast entirely. It's a cold, creeping ghost. In the short term, inaction feels safe. By not asking someone out, we avoid rejection. By not applying for the dream job, we avoid the possibility of not getting it. By not starting the creative project, we avoid the fear that it won't be as good as we imagine. In the moment, it feels like the smart, self-protective move. But psychological research is crystal clear on this. Over the long arc of a life, we are far more haunted by the chances we didn't take. As people age, their regrets shift dramatically. Surveys show that in the short term, regrets about actions are more intense. But over the long term, regrets about inactions become both more common and more painful, eventually becoming about twice as common as action regrets. Why? Because with inaction, there's no data. No closure. There's just a blank space, and our minds are absolute masters at filling that blank space with idealized fantasies of what if. That person you didn't ask out doesn't just become a fond memory. In your imagination, they become the one true love of your life, the soulmate you let slip away. The business you didn't start becomes the next billion-dollar unicorn, a guaranteed success story you missed out on. The book you didn't write becomes a timeless masterpiece that would have changed the world. These missed opportunities grow heavier over time, romanticized and perfected by the years. There's no lesson to learn, no mistake to correct, just a widening gap between the life you're living and the life you could have lived. This is the gap between your actual self, who you are, and your ideal self, the person you dream of being. And psychological studies show it's the failure to live up to our ideal self that creates the most painful, lasting regrets. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what's in your suitcase? What are the unworn clothes, the postponed selves you've packed away for someday? Is it the artist, the entrepreneur, the world traveler, the person who's physically fit and full of energy? The parent who is truly present? Take a moment and really visualize them. Don't shy away from it. The first step to unpacking that suitcase is just acknowledging what's inside. We've been given permission our whole lives to feel guilty about our mistakes, but I'm giving you permission to mourn the parts of yourself you never let see the light of day. That quiet grief is the first sign that you're ready to change. It's the first crack of light in a room that's been dark for way too long. Section 2, Agitate, the deafening silence of a life unlived. Now let's get personal. I want to tell you about my own suitcase. For years, the heaviest thing I carried, the item that made the handle dig into my fingers, was the writer I was always going to be. It started in college. I loved writing, I was good at it, and I had this clear, vivid vision of myself living a creative life. My ideal self was a writer. He wore tweed jackets, of course, had a messy desk littered with books, and spent his days wrestling with beautiful sentences. But when I graduated, the ought self took over, the self that feels obligated to follow a certain path, the one that listens to the voices of parents and society. I told myself I needed a stable job, a real career. Writing was a hobby, a passion, something to do someday, so I got a sensible job in marketing. It was fine, I was good at it. I wrote copy, developed brand strategies, and climbed the corporate ladder. I paid my bills. On the outside, everything looked successful, but inside, that deferred dream began to fester. Every time I saw a book by an author my age on a bookstore shelf, I felt this ugly, physical pang in my stomach, a toxic cocktail of jealousy and deep, personal failure. Every evening, I spent mindlessly scrolling on my phone, instead of opening a blank document, felt like a tiny, conscious betrayal of that future self I was supposed to be. Procrastination became my default setting, and it wasn't just about writing, it started to bleed into everything. I'd put off going to the gym, making that phone call, planning that trip. This chronic pattern of delay creates a feedback loop of stress and low self-esteem. When you face a task that triggers fear or self-doubt, your brain's emotional center, the amygdala, lights up with a stress response. To escape this discomfort, your brain seeks immediate relief through avoidance, procrastinating. This avoidance gives you a momentary feeling of relief, but it's a trap. It reinforces the idea that the only way to handle discomfort is to run from it. I was living in a constant state of low-grade tension, the pressure of unfinished potential always hanging over me like a storm cloud. It's a strange kind of paralysis. You know what you need to do, you desperately want to do it, but the thought of starting is so loaded with fear, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. The compounding shame of waiting so long that you just don't. You choose the momentary, fleeting relief of avoidance over the long-term, profound satisfaction of action. This is the heart of the regret spiral. It starts with inaction, which leads to feelings of guilt and shame. Those negative feelings drain your energy and confidence, which makes it even harder to start. So you avoid it more, which creates more guilt and shame. It's a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. You get stuck. Research calls this a sense of stuckness, a feeling of longing and anxiety over what could have been, which is far more likely to lead to depression than the sharp regret of a mistake you actually made. For me, the what-if fantasies were the worst. What if I had just started writing at 22? Where would I be now? My mind would paint these glorious, high-definition pictures of an alternate reality where I was a successful author, living this vibrant, creative life. These weren't helpful, motivating thoughts. They were a form of psychological self-torture, just making the gap between my real life and my imagined one feel even bigger. This is a key reason inaction, regrets hurt more over time. While you can learn from a mistake, you can't learn from a fantasy. The fantasy just gets more perfect, and your real life feels more lacking in comparison. The turning point wasn't some dramatic, movie-like moment. It was a slow, dawning horror. I was in my early 30s, at dinner with old college friends. They were talking about their lives, their passions, the things they were building. One was training for a marathon, showing us pictures of her sunrise runs. Another was renovating an old house, passionately describing the challenges of restoring the original woodwork. They were acting, they were living, they were creating stories, and I realized, with a jolt like an electric shock, that I had nothing to talk about but my job. My someday had become my never. The silence of my inaction was suddenly deafening. That heavy load Langston Hughes wrote about, I could feel its full weight pressing down on my shoulders, making it hard to breathe. I had become an expert at talking about the life I was going to live, and it had completely replaced the act of actually living it. And this is the deep, dark consequence of this pattern. It's not just about a missed goal, it's about who you become while you're waiting. You become a person who doesn't trust themselves. You learn through thousands of tiny daily decisions to wait that your own promises to yourself are worthless. Your self-worth erodes. You start to see yourself as lazy, undisciplined, or cowardly. This is why chronic procrastination is so tightly linked to depression and anxiety. It's a slow-motion surrender of your own potential. Think about your own life. What has the waiting cost you? Not just in missed opportunities, but in your relationship with yourself. How many New Year's resolutions have you abandoned by February, adding another piece of evidence to the internal narrative that you can't stick with anything? How many times have you said, "This weekend, I'm finally going to start," only to find yourself on Sunday night filled with that familiar, hollow feeling of regret? It's a heavy toll. It impacts our health through chronic stress. It can damage our relationships as we become irritable and withdrawn, preoccupied with our own internal battles. And most profoundly, it fractures our identity. We start living in a state of cognitive dissonance, where the person we could be is in a constant, painful war with the person we are. The ultimate tragedy is that waiting, which feels so safe and responsible in the moment, is the very thing that guarantees the deepest pain in the long run. In her work with palliative care patients, Bronnie Ware identified the most common regret of the dying. It wasn't about things they did, it was the number one regret. "I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." Don't let that be your story. Section 3. Solve the escape from Someday Island. So we're stuck on Someday Island. It's comfortable, surrounded by the calm seas of procrastination. The weather is always mild, nothing too challenging ever happens, but we've just seen the truth. This island is a trap. The longer we stay, the harder it is to leave, and the island is slowly sinking into a sea of regret. The good news is that regret is not your enemy, it's a signal. It's your psyche's check engine light, telling you that your current path is leading away from your deeply held values. As author Daniel Pink says in his book, The Power of Regret, if we know what we truly regret, we know what we truly value. Regret is a tool for clarification. It's pointing the way off the island. The escape isn't some giant, heroic leap to the mainland. You don't need to quit your job and move to Bali tomorrow. In fact, thinking you need a massive, perfect plan is part of the trap that keeps you on the island. It's overwhelming, so you do nothing. The escape is about building a small, sturdy raft, one log at a time, and starting to paddle. It's about small, consistent, imperfect actions. This is your 3-step escape plan from Someday Island. Step 1, the audit. Open the suitcase and name yourselves first. You have to stop avoiding the suitcase. You need to open it, take everything out, and look at it in the clear light of day. This is not about shaming yourself. It's about getting curious. We need to turn that vague, heavy feeling of "I'm not living up to my potential" into something concrete and tangible. Daniel Pink's research, based on a survey of thousands of regrets from around the world, found that almost all regrets fall into 4 core categories. We're going to use these categories to audit your postponed selves. Grab a piece of paper. First, boldness regrets. These are the "if only I'd taken the chance" regrets. Ask yourself, if fear and money were no object, who would I be? What would I have tried? Let your mind run wild. The painter, the stand-up comedian, the person who speaks fluent Italian, the attentive parent, the entrepreneur who launched that wild idea. Write them all down. These are the chances you haven't taken. Second, foundation regrets. These are failures in foresight and conscientiousness, not doing the small, boring things that provide stability. Ask yourself, what small, daily habits did I fail to start that have led me here? This is about the small bits of neglect that compound. Maybe it's I didn't save 10% of my income, I didn't exercise for 30 minutes a day, or I smoked for too long. Be honest. These are the small choices that create a shaky foundation. Third, moral regrets. These are the "if only I'd done the right thing" regrets. These come from moments when we had a choice to act according to our own ethical code, and we didn't. Ask yourself, when did I have a chance to be better, kinder, or more honest, and I chose the easier path? It could be bullying someone in school, cheating on a test, or staying silent when someone else was being wronged. Fourth, connection regrets. These are often the most powerful and enduring regrets people have. They arise from neglecting the people who matter most. Ask yourself, who is one person I wish I had a better relationship with? A relationship that has drifted apart not through conflict, but through simple neglect. An old friend, a parent, a sibling. If only I had reached out. Now look at your list. This is not a list of your failures. This is a map of your values. Your boldness regret about not starting a business reveals you value creativity and autonomy. Your foundation regret about not being healthier reveals you value vitality. Your moral regret reveals you value integrity. Your connection regret reveals you value love and friendship. For the first time, you are seeing the hidden architecture of your heart. Naming your regrets is powerful. You're taking a shapeless, negative emotion and turning it into data, which is the first step in making it less scary. You're giving yourself permission to grieve the loss, which is essential before you can move forward. Step 2, the antidote. Take 1, imperfect action. The only known antidote to the regret of inaction is action. It's that simple and that difficult, but we're not going to make it difficult. We're going to make it so small, so laughably easy, that it's impossible to say no. This is about breaking the cycle of paralysis by taking a single, imperfect step. Look at your map of values from step 1. Pick one area, just one. Don't try to fix your whole life at once. That overwhelm is what got you stuck here in the first place. Now ask yourself this question: what is the smallest, most pathetic, easiest possible action I could take in the next 24 hours to move 1 inch closer to that ideal? If your postponed self is a writer, the action is not write a book. It's open a document and write 1 sentence, or even just title the document "My Book." If your postponed self is a marathon runner, the action is not run 10 miles. It's put on your running shoes and walk to the end of the driveway. If you have a foundation regret about finances, the action isn't create a perfect budget. It's download 1 budgeting app to your phone. If you have a connection regret, the action is not heal decades of family trauma. It's text your sister 1 old, funny photo from your childhood. See the pattern? We are lowering the bar so low you can't trip over it. The goal here isn't the outcome. The goal is to break the inertia. It's to prove to yourself that you can act. This is how you start rebuilding that broken trust with yourself. When you tell yourself you'll write 1 sentence, and then you do it, you make a small deposit in your self-trust bank account. Tomorrow, maybe it's 2 sentences, then a paragraph. This is the power of choosing action over perfection. Fear of making a mistake leads to paralysis, which is the biggest mistake of all. By taking a tiny, imperfect action, you start gathering data. You're moving from the fantasy world of what if into messy reality, and reality is where growth happens. You are generating a new story, a story where you are a person who takes action. And that story, repeated daily, will become your new identity. Step 3, the anchor. Have a conversation with your future self. This final step is what will keep you paddling when you feel tired, when the winds of distraction blow, when the siren song of someday island's comfort calls to you. You need an anchor, and the most powerful anchor you have is a clear, emotional connection to the person you are becoming. I want you to try a visualization exercise. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed for 10 minutes. Close your eyes, take a few deep breaths. Now I want you to imagine yourself 1 year from today. But this isn't today's you, weighed down by the suitcase. This is the you who has been taking small, consistent actions every single day. This is the you who has been paddling away from someday island for 365 days. What does this future you look like? Don't just think it, feel it. See them in your mind's eye. How do they carry themselves? There's a new confidence there, isn't there? A lightness in their step. The weight of that unlived life is gone from their shoulders. What have they accomplished? Not miracles, just progress. Maybe they've written the first 50 pages of their book. Maybe they can comfortably run a 5K without stopping. Maybe their relationship with their sibling is warmer and more genuine than it's been in years. It doesn't have to be monumental. It just has to be progress. Feel the quiet pride and solid satisfaction they feel in their chest. Now ask this future you a question. Ask them, was it worth it? Were all those tiny, difficult actions, all those moments of choosing the uncomfortable thing over the easy thing, were they worth it? Listen to their answer. Don't invent it, just listen for it. Feel the certainty and the deep gratitude in their voice as they say, yes, 1,000 times yes. Finally, ask them for advice. What's the one thing I need to remember today to help me become you? Maybe they say, just write the one sentence. That's all that matters today. Maybe they say, remember how good it feels to be strong and have energy. Maybe they say, just send the text. It's not as awkward as you think. Hold on to that feeling. This person isn't a fantasy. This person is your potential. This is who you are fighting for every time you choose action over inaction. This is your anchor. Whenever you feel yourself drifting, whenever the voice of procrastination gets loud, close your eyes and have this conversation again. Reconnect with why you started paddling in the first place. This 3-step plan, the audit, the antidote, and the anchor, isn't a magic trick. It's a practice. It's the work of transforming regret from a dead weight that sinks you into a compass that guides you. It is the process of closing the gap between who you are and who you could be, one intentional step at a time. Conclusion: over a lifetime, our regrets teach us a profound lesson about what a good life is made of. The 4 core regrets that people have all over the world, foundation, boldness, moral, and connection regrets, are a photographic negative of a life well lived. If you flip them over, you see the positive image. A good life is built on a stable foundation of health, security, and hard work. It includes moments of boldness and taking sensible chances. It's lived with integrity and kindness, and maybe most importantly, it's defined by deep, meaningful connections and love. You have all the information you need. Your past regrets are the curriculum. This moment is the classroom. Your future self is the teacher. The life you want isn't waiting for you somewhere in the future. It's not hiding behind a bigger paycheck or a more convenient time. It is built, it is earned. It is assembled piece by piece through the small, courageous actions you take today. That suitcase full of unworn clothes, it's time to stop carrying it. It's time to start wearing the clothes. Wear the adventurous outfit, even if it's just for a walk in a new neighborhood. Wear the elegant dress, even if it's just for dinner at home. Put on the professional suit and send that one email you've been afraid to send. My challenge to you is this: look at the list you made in step 1. Pick one postponed self. Then, using step 2, identify the smallest possible action you can take. Don't just think about it. Go to the comments section right now and declare it. Write down, my postponed self is a fill in the blank, and my one imperfect action today is to fill in the blank. Declaring it makes it real. It signals to yourself and to this community that you are drawing a line in the sand. Today is the day the waiting ends. Reading the comments will show you that you are not alone. We all have our suitcases, we all have our someday islands, but today we can start building our rafts together. Don't let the silence of your inaction become the loudest sound in your memory. The past is for learning, not for living in. The future you dream of is not a destination, it is a direction, and it starts right now with a single paddle stroke. Thank you for watching.